This episode of The Modern Rogue brought to you by My Nana.
That's right, Brian.
This episode is brought to you by NordVPN. Wait a minute, are you just a middleman, Nana?
That's right. Go to nordvpn.com/rogue. Use promo code ROGUE to get a big discount on 2 years plus a month free.
A month of what, Nana?
I don't know. I do what the nice people tell me to. Threat protection.
Jason Murphy, it feels weird. We're back to doing field trips.
We're not at the sound stage. This is so exciting.
We're actually at the bar. Where are we?
We are here with award-winning bar manager Erin Ashford at Ola May in Austin, Texas.
And we are going to learn the secrets of...
Punch bowls.
The bowls? You just buy a bucket.
Put it in it.
You just buy a bucket and just pour
stuff in
the
it.
King's Cup into it. It's like, you have already failed.
This is why we need to be here.
Brian's a legitimate bartender. He just starts grabbing things. What is that, mayonnaise? Oh my
great.
God. Yeah.
That's bartending. The perks kind of for a punch bowl are that all the prep is done beforehand, so you don't need to do anything during your party or during your event. You just batch it, you get it ready, it sits there, and then you pour it in the bowl, and then it's ready for your guests, and you can just sit back and relax.
It's one of the few things where it's like it doesn't get any worse the drunker you get throughout the night.
So kind of the basics of punch is 5 ingredients. You need a spirit, a bitter, a citrus, a sugar, and a lengthener, which is usually like sparkling water, or ginger beer, or...
Yeah. I don't know about that one.
It just rolls off the tongue. Is that in order or?
Not necessarily, but those are things you have to have. They all kind of vary. Like, obviously you have to have a spirit, but if you want to make a mocktail punch, you could easily leave the spirit out. But what's lengthening it? So it's all like different variations, different volumes to make your full batch of punch. So I love punch because I think it's so easy. I usually build it by taste. I don't measure, which is a big thing that I think comes to you when you feel comfortable with knowing like, okay, I'm gonna taste as I go, adjust as I go, and punch is the best for that because you can build it in a separate container before you actually put it in the punch bowl. So for this, I thought it'd be fun to do a gin punch. I think a clear spirit is a little more crowd pleasing. Don't pick anything too funky if you're trying to build a punch bowl for a group. If you're serving 10 to 20 people, you don't want to serve Malort in a punch bowl.
Just pour Listerine right in.
Don't do that. So for me, I pick gin. Some people are turned off by gin, but in a punch, you can kind of mask it, kind of cover it with other flavors that are more floral and light and pretty. And I wanted to do something with champagne, which is also a great option for the lengthener.
That's what lengthening means.
Yeah.
It means making it not so hard and boozy.
Yes.
Got it.
Yeah. And punch, again, you don't want it to be so strong because obviously you're drinking out of multiple little cups. The idea of punch is it's communal. You can hang out around the punch. You can have multiple sips. You don't want to have just one stiff drink and then it's over. It's supposed to last you throughout the whole evening.
So what gin are we starting with?
So this gin, this is a London dry gin. Again, like I said, this is a great crowd-pleasing gin. Not too juniper forward, really clean, really light. London dry is definitely the way to go. Could pick something like Hendrick's, which is a little more like rose water and cucumber. That would be really pretty in a punch bowl. Really just depends what flavors you're going for.
Cool.
So you want to definitely start with the gin as your base.
Now, it's interesting that you say how you mix from taste, because that's really the skill set that enables you to kind of start freestyling and finding out more of what you like.
Right.
It also guarantees that when the first guests arrive, you're already smiling.
Yeah, because I've been tasting all day.
So we've got our gin,
Yes.
that's our spirit. Next is our bitter.
Or bitter. So you could go multiple different ways for bitter. I like Amaro in punches. I like vermouth, which is what I went with. But you could also do actual bitters like Angostura, aromatic bitters, any type of like bittering agent. I like vermouth because again, our goal here is not to make gin the highest volume. So I want to use vermouth as the bittering agent because it's also really juicy. This is a rosé vermouth from Coki, an Italian vermouth company. They make sweet, dry, blanc. This is the rosé. So it is actually made with rosé wine. So it gives some sweetness, bittersweet for the bittering agent, and again, like juicier lengthener to the gin. So citrus, you can pick anything, you know, you could do pineapple, pomegranate, cranberry, lemon, lime, grapefruit.
What do you like?
Mustard.
What do you like? What do you don't like?
I like your harsh citruses, your orange and your lemons and that kind of stuff. but I'm a weirdo.
Sure. And more harsh would be like lime. So like lime versus lemon. Lime is going to be way zippier, way stronger. Lemon's going to be a little bit softer, a little more subtle. So in this instance, I thought grapefruit would go really pretty with the rosé vermouth. Again, trying to keep it light, keep it fresh. This is also kind of a more maybe Texas-centric punch, which has more herbaceous notes of rosemary and thyme to go along with it. So grapefruit is a great Texas ingredient, ruby red grapefruit juice.
And this is just straight, like you could go to the HEB, since we're in Texas, and just get regular grapefruit juice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can buy grapefruit juice that's already juiced as long as it's fresh. A lot of places in town, like different markets, do that, or juicing fresh is always best. You do want to make your punch bowl day of. You don't want to make it too far in advance because you want it to be fresh. Storing it days ahead is just not going to be as bright. If you batch it day of, it'll be the best it can be.
Do you like the whole, like, leaving a little bit of pulp and having slices floating around in the punch bowl?
I don't like any pulp. I think the cleaner the better. So if you're going to juice the juice, I would use a strainer. You can use like a fine mesh strainer if you have a cocktail toolkit at home. You could use a cheesecloth or even a coffee filter. I feel like the less pulp, the better, because you want the sip to be really clean, especially if it's on ice. So for me, if I'm juicing at home with like a hand juicer, I would use a fine mesh strainer to juice into.
Oh, that's a good question. You don't put ice in the punch. You make sure the punch is sitting on ice?
So you can do it multiple different ways. So ice is a huge part of cocktails, obviously. We could nerd out about ice forever. But for a punch bowl, because the goal is longevity and having it survive the length of a party and of guests, I would keep ice on the side. It could be as easy as just in a plastic container with an ice scoop. You could get a vintage ice bucket from a local thrift store. But to me, keeping the ice on the side where guests can kind of fill their cup from the ice and then top with the punch is the best method. But if you don't have that option and just want to put ice in there, that's totally fine. You can make your own large ice cubes with an ice cube rubber tray. You could even use a container like this, fill it with water, stick it in the freezer, and make a large ice cube, which is a really cool at-home kind of hack for ice. So there's a lot of different options, but I think on the side is the best.
As the party goes on and people start getting a little sloppy, you need your pool boy, who is kind of just skimming stuff off the top. As people start dropping things in
Now,
there.
would that freak you out, the idea of a communal drinking bowl?
Oh, yeah.
For the record, Jason doesn't like the idea of the fact that fruit is cut at the beginning of the evening and sits out all night during a party.
Yeah, sanitation and sanitary habits, hygiene, that's a big one for me. So if you don't have a pool boy and everybody's getting sauced and sassy, you're gonna be pulling out like, oh, look, somebody dropped their car keys in.
I mean, that's the wrong party if there are keys in the bowl.
Yep.
It's part of the terroir of punch. Whatever goes in is part of it.
It's all the sauce.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
spirits, bitter, citrus, sweetener. What are we doing for a sweetener?
So this, again, has so many different options. You could do agave, you could do a turbinado sugar, you could do a regular, just white, simple syrup. In this case, I chose honey. I feel like a honey syrup just brings a little, again, more floral, light, lively brightness to it. Whereas turbinado sugar or demerara sugar, which is an unbleached, darker sugar, has like deep base notes. Honey will have brighter, livelier notes. So it's just all about, do you want to be kind of high-toned flavors or lower or deeper?
It also occurs to me that this is an opportunity to tell a story, because so much of cocktail culture is about the narrative that you're telling. So it's like, these grapefruits I picked up from this orchard just down the road. This is local honey, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, this is my friend Lauren's birthday. She loves grapefruit. She is, you know, someone who wears flowery tops, or what are you going for? Or am I making a whiskey punch because it's Father's Day and I want something more brooding and booze forward? So it's really, yeah, what story are you telling? What's the purpose? What are we trying to accomplish?
It's Father's Day. I just poured Fireball in there.
I got a flat of Natty Light, and it's...
Would that
each
work
their own.
for a lengthener, to do something as crazy as like
Absolutely.
a light beer?
Yes, because shandies are a cocktail.
Of course, yeah.
Absolutely. So you
So
can
I guess
easily
that
put
brings us
beer.
to our lengthener,
Yeah.
which will be what?
So in this case, I chose champagne, not Miller High Life, the champagne of beers, but true champagne from France.
Oh, you've already opened it, though. I was going to say,
I drank a little bit.
we could do that here.
Because we have swords.
Yeah.
So you've got your lengthener. Why champagne?
So in this case, you want something that's dry. So we're picking a lot of more sweet like I said, floral ingredients, a lot of that reads as sweet. So even though the gin is dry, even though vermouth is technically dry, grapefruit is bitter, it all reads kind of sweet on the palate. So you want something that can cut through the sweetness, can kind of carry the drink throughout each sip, and keeps it alive in the bowl. So in this case, if you did add light beer, it would just be too flat. It'd be flabby. If we added ginger beer.
Flabby. I ain't never heard booze called flabby before. That's awesome.
It happens, yeah. You want something that's like layered and complex. You don't want it to be one note. You want it to have every single layer it can possibly have, especially if you're using 5 things. They should serve a purpose. So in this case, the champagne serves the purpose of cutting the sweetness, keeping it bright, keeping it refreshing, which is a big part, and it just tastes good.
Okay, so with all of this, what is the flavor profile that we're shooting for?
So I'm shooting for grapefruit, rose, juniper, vanilla, honey, refreshing.
That sounds like an amazing summer drink.
Since you're making this to taste,
Yes.
I feel like anything we do is just gonna mess it up. So
Okay.
I say, Erin, walk us through your process.
Okay, and I'll try to make it to where you have a recipe. Also, some tips on how to make it if you don't feel comfortable doing it to taste is to make a recipe that you feel confident about, like a margarita or a Tom Collins, and then build it off of those specs. So if it's 2 ounces of tequila, 3/4 lime, half simple, you can kind of play with that ratio. Think about how many guests you have. If you're having 10 guests, think of how many cups you want them to have. Do you want them to have 2 drinks apiece, 3 drinks apiece? Think of all those elements of what you're going into. Think of the size of your vessel. In this case, this is a 4-quart vessel, so I'm gonna batch into a 4-quart and then probably pour half of it and save half in the fridge to re-up throughout the event. And then that way, if you did want to put ice into it, you could.
I am utterly ashamed to say that my dumb nerd brain just translated all that as, yeah, it's like when you start with an off-the-shelf tech deck for Hearthstone and then decide to modify it to suit.
Whatever works for you.
Wow.
So in a punch bowl, it's best to start with your base. Gin is the base. Vermouth is as well, but starting with the gin gives you a solid layer of the strongest alcohol, so that way you're modifying as you go to balance. So it's all about balancing each ingredient. Don't pour all the sugar in first because then it would be too sweet. Start with the strongest ingredient and then taper it. So I'll do probably half a bottle. This is a 750 milliliter bottle, which is about 26 ounces. So I'll probably do roughly 14 ounces of gin. And then again, batching it into a separate container helps you if you need to modify it before you put it into the final vessel. And then I'll probably do a little more vermouth since it's lower alcohol. Like I said, it gives a juicier, more robust kind of lengthener to the punch.
That is way more vermouth than I would ever expect in any drink ever.
Yeah. And since this is a rosé vermouth, it's gonna lean more sweet. So it's gonna have more of a like rosé wine quality to it. For our sugar, we're gonna add honey. I would do probably half of what the vermouth is. Again, since the vermouth is adding sweetness, so is honey. Let's treat the vermouth as a main point and the sweetener as a half point.
So far, we're 1 part, half part.
Yes.
But this is just honey, or is this honey simple syrup?
So it's honey simple syrup. So honey on its own, just raw honey, will be too thick in a drink. The ice will make it freeze, essentially. So you do need to cook honey down with water into a syrup. You can do that with 2 parts honey to 1 part water, or 1 and 1, just depends what type of syrup you want. This is a 1-to-1 honey. It works great in punches. It's really easy to make. Just cook down honey with water on a saucepan, let it cool, and then you have honey syrup. And like I said, it brings a lot of different complexity to a punch versus just a regular sugar syrup. So then we're gonna add grapefruit. It's best to add your citrus to be as much as your spirits together, if not more. So in this case, I want it to be really juicy. I want grapefruit to really be the star, whereas gin and vermouth are kind of just adding the angles. So I'll probably do at least 16 ounces. And then to me, talking about flabby juices, grapefruit, much like orange juice, needs a little support. I feel like it needs a little lemon juice or lime juice to pep it up. It just makes it kind of like with cooking, if you zest a lemon, the dish just comes to life. Same thing with cocktails. So I would probably add maybe 6 ounces of lemon to liven up the grapefruit.
Yeah, flabby old grapefruit.
Yeah, quit it. Quit being flabby. Okay, so then it's good to have a spoon. This can be a kitchen spoon, anything you have to kind of mix it up. That way your at the point now where you can try it. So I'll get some straws.
Yeah. So this is before we add any of the lengthener. So this will be a little bit concentrated.
Yeah, so the idea here is you're like, okay, I have the base set, and before I add the champagne, which you don't want to add the champagne or lengthener, anything that's bubbly or effervescent, you don't want to add until you're ready to serve.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, because it'll just
go flat.
Okay.
Of course,
so,
I just realized we're probably not all going to go like we're at a diner. You do this thing.
Yeah, you're kind of like sealing it with your finger to get a sip.
Okay.
Pretty good. You have to decide, is it too strong?
I just did
the
thing. I did the thing I always do. Wow! Yes. It's explosive. And I understand the need for the lengthener right now. It's a little bit like sometimes you're at a soda fountain and you just get just a little bit of the Coke syrup straight that you taste. Yeah,
it's a little viscous. Right now it's a little syrupy. I do think the lengthener and the bubbles will cut through that. But if you pour it into your vessel for the event and it still tastes that way, even with the lengthener, save some grapefruit juice, save some lemon juice, save your citrus so that you can kind of cut through that with the acid as well.
I'm always amazed at the order in which the tastes arrive. Like first it was very much grapefruit, and then now I'm getting just the bitters sticking around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's super layered. Kind of get that floral kind of rose petal on the end from that vermouth that's lingering with the bitterness. And the gin is kind of like you wouldn't necessarily know it's gin.
Right. Yeah. So let's say you're just before party time. Do you pour this in the bowl and then add the lengthener, or do you throw the lengthener in? Okay.
Yeah. So if we're ready for party time, it's time to pour it in the bowl. Our friends will be here in just a few minutes. I would go ahead and pour this in. Again, doing it kind of by eyeball, which if you're not comfortable with that, you could pour the lengthener into your batching vessel before you go in. But to me, I'm like, okay, like you said, it's a little bit sweet. I do want to cut it, so I'm going to save room for the lengthener. I might save some of this to re-up later on, and then I'm going to go ahead and pour in the lengthener now that people are ready to arrive, and I'm just going to do it by taste. I feel like you'd be safe doing half a bottle of champagne for this punch. Again,
the worst case is you're just drinking champagne, which ain't so bad either, right?
Yeah, and then you kind of want to stir it around so you can try it again before it's served.
Now, is there a particular name for this recipe?
I just made it up.
It's the Erin.
Yeah.
How creative.
Yeah.
Welcome. I feel like it's good. It still is a little bit sweet, but I think depending on the crowd who I had over, I think it'd be really crowd pleasing. Now, if guests are here and I have a side of my ice, which we can treat this as our little ice bucket.
Sure.
So then guests are arriving.
Is there an etiquette to serving punch?
So I feel like, again, depending on who you have, how familiar you are, trying not to use your hands is a big thing. Especially if we're, we want to remain as clean and not worried about citrus and touching things and old lime wheels as possible. So an ice bucket with a scoop is the best way to go. And then kind of the etiquette would be just kind of putting a few cubes if you were serving your guests, and then either setting it down for them and they serve themselves, or you can serve it for them. Having a ladle that has a little spout on it is definitely the way to go. That way you don't spill it. And then you can get any type of cute coaster. I have these little doilies that are very old lady Southern, which are cute for punch. And then garnish is a big part. You can either float the garnish in the bowl or garnish as you go for each cup. I like the garnish with each cup because it kind of stays intact versus floating garnish in your bowl is going to be, it's going to sink or it's going to get wilted. So in this case, I went with rosemary because of the aromatics. So when you sip the cup of punch, you'll smell the rosemary on the nose. It pairs really well with the grapefruit, the vermouth, the gin, again, being very herbaceous and floral. I want those aromatics on the nose, so.
Is it the moment of truth?
I think so.
Should we cheers?
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, so this punch bowl, we've got the spirit, the bitters, the citrus, the sweetener, and the lengthener.
Dude, it's like I could taste each of those as you were saying it. Red lion, yellow lion, black lion. Erin,
it's the Voltron.
It is. It's the Voltron of cocktails. It's amazing. Erin, where can people come and visit you in person or follow you online?
Yeah, so right now you can come visit me at Olame Restaurant in Austin, Texas. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Erin, Erin, Katie, Caity. That's it.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thank you.
Oh, sure. I had a trained dog. He would talk to me all the time.
Nana, we're trying to do a NordVPN ad.
Yes, we used to do the Nord and the Jitterbug.
Nana, that's not, it's not a dance.
What is it then?
You know it for threat protection.
Yes, so many threats on the internet. I saw a meme once.
Right, but the important thing is that NordVPN's threat protection runs whether you're connected to the internet or not.
I remember the internet.
Was it a dance?
Oh, no. You see, a big band would strike up and play music, and we would do the internet. Beep, pop, boop, 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 Peppy the Frog.
Nana,
Beep, pop, boop, 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 hamster dance.
Nana, it sounds like you're describing a dance.
Maybe it was a dance, but nobody knew it.
Why not?
That's because we were using NordVPN. With thousands of servers all over the world, nobody knew what we were up to. The traffic was encrypted.
How do you know about encryption?
I made the Enigma machine.
Which side were you on, Nana?
With NordVPN, it doesn't matter. You see, they're based out of Panama. Ain't no extradition in Panama, Brian.
I suppose that's true, but can't people get their hands on logs?
The only log I got my hands on belonged to your grandpop.
Okay, the important part, Nana, is anyone can head on over to nordvpn.com/rogue. Spell it right, ROGUE. Get a huge discount on 2 years plus 1 month free.
1 month of what?
Nana, I asked you that.
I learned the Watusi once. Learned it on the TikTok.
Are you on TikTok, Nana?
Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. You'll never know because I'm on NordVPN. We're talking end-to-end encryption. Do you ever want to walk into the bathroom while your Nana's up to business?
No.
Good. That's why I use NordVPN. It's like locking the door while your Nana takes a big old juicy dump.
I think Nana wants to make sure you're locking the door. When you're doing whatever you're up to on the internet, make sure you lock the door with nordvpn.com/rogue.
Beep, pop, boop, boop, boop. All your base I belong to us. He said that to Hitler.
Modern Rogue is supported in part by viewers like you at patreon.com/modernrogue. In the description, you can find all of our credits and additional ways to support the show.
I'm gonna scoop and just make sure nobody's keys or anything are falling in.
You're gonna get a film of pollen off the top.
Yep. Oh,
You're the pool boy.
there's a Taco Bueno receipt. Pretty sure that's mine. Ooh, cheese sticks. I haven't made cheese sticks in a long time. That actually happened to me with a deep fryer that I owned.